Welcome to Philosophy Crossroads, where every ancient idea is a signpost, and every text holds a tool for modern life. The light from your screen paints the ceiling again. It's late, and you're scrolling past lives that seem perfectly curated, perfectly happy. A familiar, quiet anxiety settles in, a tightness in your chest. You feel tethered to this device, a phantom buzz in your pocket even when it's not there. You're overwhelmed by the noise, the opinions, the constant performance. Ever wonder what it truly felt like to have a mind that doesn't race at 3 a.m.? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you find the journey we're about to take is a valuable one. We'd love to see where you're watching from, so drop your location in the comments and maybe share which philosophical idea fascinates you the most. Now let's walk the path and uncover the wisdom of the masters. That path, for us, begins right here, in the glare of that screen. This digital tether is a uniquely modern problem, but the feeling it generates is ancient. It is the anxiety of the uncontrollable. It's the feeling of being adrift, of your peace of mind being hijacked by algorithms and the validation of strangers. You post something, a picture, an accomplishment, a vulnerable thought, and the wait begins. You wait for the like, the comment, the share. You are performing, and now you must wait for the applause. You find yourself checking, refreshing, checking again. This cycle is exhausting. It fragments your attention and leaves you with a low-grade agitation, a sense that you are always on and always slightly failing. You might feel the sting of comparison, the isolation of seeing a world you're not part of, or the sharp personal spike of a hateful comment. You know this isn't sustainable. You've likely tried the standard fixes, digital detoxes, screen time limits, mindfulness apps, but these often feel like surface-level solutions. They're behavioral patches for what feels like a much deeper psychological wound. You realize you don't need another productivity hack. You need a new operating system for your mind. You need a toolkit. What if the instructions for that toolkit were written not in Silicon, but 2 millennia ago by people who faced their own versions of chaos, plagues, and information overload?
The gods have abandoned us!
You reach back in time, not for history lessons, ears but for number hardware. Ears you're looking for battle-tested systems. Here when 2 names emerge from the noise, ears Stoicism, ears and Buddhism. At first glance, they seem worlds apart. Ears one conjures images of Roman emperors in marble halls, or on writing about logic and virtue. The other, the serene, a cross-legged Buddha under a Bodhi tree, deep in meditation. But you must set aside these dusty mental images. Forget the Hollywood version of the Stoic. That unfeeling, our joyless block of stone. That's a caricature. Real Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about transforming it through reason. It's not about having a stiff upper lip. It's about building an inner citadel so strong that external events are like a hateful comment, or a wave of public opinion, simply cannot breach your walls. It's a technology for distinguishing signal from noise. For reclaiming your focus from the chaos. /. Similarly, you must look past the idea of Buddhism as something exclusively for monks, a passive retreat from the world. It isn't about detaching from life. It's a profound, systematic investigation into life. Specifically into the mechanics of suffering. The Buddha wasn't a god. He presented himself as a physician. A man who diagnosed the human condition, and offered a precise, repeatable prescription. It is a mental technology for observing your own mind, for seeing exactly how a like creates a flicker of attachment, or how a critical reply triggers a cascade of defensive anger. It's a toolkit for dismantling the very mechanisms that make social media so addictive and anxiety-inducing. \. These are not abstract philosophies. They are practical, actionable systems. \. They are psychological toolkits designed over millennia to address the exact error kind of suffering you're feeling. They were developed by people who faced plagues, wars, exile, and profound loss, events that make a digital pile-on seem manageable, yet feel psychologically identical. Both systems start with a radical premise. Your suffering is not caused by the external world. It's not the algorithm, the feed, or the comment. It is generated internally by your response to those things. Both systems promise that you can train your mind to respond differently. One teaches you to build an unshakable self. The other teaches you to look closely at what that self even is.
But before you explore that fundamental split, that fork in the road where these two paths diverge, you must walk the ground they share. You find yourself standing on a common bedrock, a foundation built on two profound, unshakable insights. The first insight is that the world, both internal and external, is in a constant state of flux. You feel this viscerally every time you open your phone. That validation from a new follower, it's fleeting. That sting from an unkind reply, it too will eventually fade. The Buddhists have a core term for this, anicca, or impermanence. They observe that all your suffering, all that digital anxiety, comes from trying to grasp onto things that are by their very nature unstable. You become attached to praise. You become attached to a certain self-image. You become attached to the idea that your online life should be a smooth, upward curve. But the feed is chaotic. It gives and it takes away. Buddhism suggests your anxiety is the friction between your desire for permanence and the reality of impermanence. The Stoics see this same reality just through a different lens. They wouldn't call it anicca, they would call it the nature of externals. Your reputation, the number of likes, the opinions of strangers on the internet. These are all outside your control. They are indifferent to your well-being. Marcus Aurelius, looking at your feed, would simply see a river of events. He would see that pinning your internal peace to this chaotic flow is, by definition, a recipe for misery. This is the first aha moment. Both toolkits agree that your anxiety isn't caused by the feed. It's caused by expecting the feed to be something it can never be. Stable, controllable, and permanent. This diagnosis leads directly to their shared solution. The only place you have any real power is in the present moment. If the future is uncontrollable and the past is just a memory, all your agency is compressed into this single instant. The Stoics locate this power in your prohoresis, your faculty of rational choice. You cannot control the hateful comment that just appeared, but you can control your judgment of it, right here, right now. You can choose to see it as a truly harmful event, or as the meaningless noise of a stranger. That choice is your sacred internal territory. Buddhism lands on the same spot, instructing you to bring your full mindfulness to this present moment. When the anxiety arises, you don't fight it. You don't judge it. You simply observe it. There is tightness in the chest. There is heat in the face. You are training your mind to witness its own habits without being swept away. This is their common ground, a relentless focus on the now and a commitment to internal training. But it is in that training that the paths divide. What exactly are you training? And who is the you that is doing the training? This is the great divergence. This is the crossroads. You stand at this junction and look down two distinct paths. Both began on the same bedrock, accepting impermanence, focusing on the now. But they now split over the most fundamental question. Who or what is the you at the center of this anxiety? Down the first path, the Stoic one, the you is your rational mind, your hegemonicon or ruling faculty. This is your essence. It is the conscious, judging, reasoning part of you that observes the world and makes choices. For the Stoic, this self is not the problem. It is the solution. The goal of all Stoic practice is to make this self a fortress. You polish it, strengthen it, and train it to be impervious to the chaos outside. When you feel that spike of anxiety from a notification, the Stoic self is the inner CEO that steps in and says, "That feeling is based on a false judgment. My worth is not dependent on this external like. This is just noise. I choose not to assent to this disturbance." You are actively strengthening your ego, but a very specific, rational version of it. You are building an unshakable identity rooted in your own virtue and reason, not in the fleeting opinions of the digital crowd. Yourself is the hero of the story, the captain of the ship. You turn and look down the second path. Buddhism offers a more radical and perhaps more unsettling proposal. It looks at that same feeling. I am anxious. I am being insulted. And it doesn't try to strengthen the I. It invites you to investigate it. It asks you to look for this self that feels so solid. This is the doctrine of anatta, or no self. This isn't a nihilistic claim that you don't exist. It's an insight that the self you feel so protective of isn't a permanent, solid entity. It is a process. It's a temporary collection of constantly shifting parts. Physical feelings, fleeting sensations, cognitive processes, impulses, and thoughts. When you feel the sting of a hateful comment, the Buddhist toolkit doesn't tell yourself to be stronger. It asks you to observe the sting mindfully. There is a hot feeling in the chest. There is a thought. I am being attacked. There is an impulse to defend. You discover that the I who is under attack is just a label for this momentary bundle of experiences. The anxiety isn't yours. It's just anxiety. It arises and it will pass. This insight fundamentally diffuses the problem. If there's no solid, permanent I to protect, who exactly is being harmed by the comment?
This fundamental split in who you are directly changes what you do when that digital anxiety strikes. Imagine that hot rush of anger or shame when you see a truly cruel comment posted on your profile. The feeling is immediate, physical, and overwhelming. Following the Stoic path, your ruling faculty immediately steps in. It's like an internal auditor. It sees the anger and flags it, not as an invading enemy, but as a misjudgment. The Stoic toolkit contains a technique of logical reframing. You are not suppressing the anger. You are disputing it. You would actively ask yourself, is my character actually harmed by this stranger's words? Is my virtue compromised? No. You remind yourself that the opinions of others are externals. They are outside your sphere of control and ultimately indifferent to your well-being. You might even practice what's called negative visualization, in reverse, reminding yourself that you could be facing exile, poverty, or sickness, and that in comparison, a few digital words are meaningless. The anger cools, not because it was buried, but because the belief that fueled it, "This comment is a terrible harm to me," was exposed as false. You have used reason to restore your inner calm. Now, let's rewind and apply the Buddhist toolkit. That same hot rush of anger arises. The Buddhist path doesn't ask you to reframe the anger or judge it as an error. It asks you to observe it with non-judgmental awareness. You are invited to sit with the feeling. You mentally note, anger is present. There is heat in the chest. The jaw is clenching. A story is playing in my mind about me and my reputation. You don't become I am angry. You simply witness the experience of anger as it happens. You are watching the weather of your mind. As you watch it without feeding it, without identifying with it, without pushing it away, a funny thing happens. The anger loses its power. It is just energy. It peaks, and then, because it is impermanent like all things, it begins to fade on its own. You haven't defeated it. You've simply let it go by seeing it for what it is. These different techniques point to their distinct ultimate goals. The Stoic goal is eudaimonia, a state of human flourishing and robust rational tranquility. You want to be a virtuous, effective, and serene actor in the world, unshakable by its chaos. The goal of Buddhism is nirvana, the extinguishing of the fires of suffering. This is a profound liberation from the cycle of craving and aversion that keeps.
You hooked on the feed. One builds an unshakable self. The other sees through the self to find peace. Let's make this practical. You post something you're proud of. It's not a performance. It's a moment of genuine sharing. A project you finished. A personal insight. A photo that captures a feeling. You feel that small, vulnerable spark of putting yourself out there. And then it lands. You see the notification. It's a comment. And it's not just critical. It's hateful. It uses personal, cruel language. It calls you a fraud. It mocks your effort, your appearance, or your intelligence. The reaction is immediate and physical. Your stomach plummets. A hot chemical flush of adrenaline floods your chest and face. Your heart thumps. That background hum of digital anxiety has just become a screaming siren. The impulse to defend, to delete, to lash out, to justify is overwhelming. Right here, at this junction, you have your two toolkits. Path 1, the Stoic Toolkit. You feel the first movement of anger and shame, but you do not assent to it. You pause. This is the discipline of assent. You activate your ruling faculty. You grab a mental shield and begin the interrogation. Is this person's opinion within my control? Number. Is my character actually harmed by their words? Number. My character is defined by my actions and my virtue, not by the keyboard strokes of a stranger. You are applying the dichotomy of control. You reframe the event. This isn't a catastrophe. This is just the noise of an unhappy person. It has no bearing on my worth. You might even go further, practicing a premeditation of evils, reminding yourself that in the grand scheme of things, compared to exile or illness, this is nothing. The anger doesn't vanish, but its fuel line has been cut by reason. It cools into a simple, objective fact. You've protected your inner citadel. You can now choose to delete the comment and block the user, not from a place of reactive anger, but from a calm, rational decision to curate your environment. Path 2, the Buddhist Toolkit. You see the same comment. You feel the same physical slam of adrenaline and shame, but you do not engage it with logic. You do not reframe it. You simply watch it. You become a curious, compassionate observer of your own internal weather. You turn your attention inward and note, anger. There is a hot feeling in the chest. There is tightness in the jaw. A story is playing in my mind. I am a fraud. You don't try to stop the story. You don't try to fix the feeling. You just observe it with mindfulness. You sit with the anger. You are not. I am angry. You are the awareness that is watching anger arise. As you do this, you investigate it. Where is the I that is so hurt? Is it in the tightness? Is it in the thought? You see, it's all just a bundle of processes, of aggregates, all impermanent. By not feeding the anger, by not defending the self it claims to be attacking, the anger peaks, and then, having no fuel, it begins to dissipate on its own. It washes through you, and is gone. You realize the comment had no solid you to hit in the first place. You stand at this junction, having seen both paths in action. You saw the Stoic shield deflect the blow with reason, and you saw the Buddhist lens dissolve the blow with awareness. The natural question that arises in your mind is, which one is better? Which path should I choose? But you realize this is the wrong question. It's like looking at that hateful comment and asking if you should use a hammer or a saw. The answer depends on what you are trying to do. You are not a follower of a dogma. You are a craftsperson building a more resilient, peaceful mind. These two paths are not opposing religions. They are a complementary toolkit. You can now see situations in your life where the Stoic tool is precisely what you need. When you're in a high-stakes meeting and a colleague criticizes your work, you need the Stoic shield. You need to access your ruling faculty fast, to separate the insult from the data, to remain calm, rational, and virtuous in your response. You need to act effectively in the world. The Stoic toolkit is your armor for the external world. It builds the strength and virtue required to navigate social and professional chaos with integrity. But you also recognize the other times, that recurring low-grade anxiety you feel late at night, that deep habitual pattern of seeking validation on your phone, that profound fear of not being enough. These are not problems to be solved with a logical shield. This is where the Buddhist toolkit, the investigative lens, becomes essential. This is the work you do on the cushion, in the quiet of your own mind. This is where you investigate the root of that craving, which the Four Noble Truths identify as the cause of all suffering. This is where you gently explore the anatta concept, asking, who is this self that so desperately needs to be liked? You don't have to choose. You can use Stoic principles to manage your daily interactions with the digital world, to create the mental space and stability you need. And then, in that space you've created, you can use Buddhist mindfulness to do the deeper, transformative work of understanding why you're so hooked in the first place. The Stoic practice builds the calm, stable mind. The Buddhist practice uses that calm mind to see through its own illusions. You realize you can be a Stoic in the marketplace and a Buddhist in your meditation, letting each practice enrich the other. You are no longer just a passive scroller, a victim of the algorithm. You are an artisan, and you are finally holding the tools. You are back in your room. The light from the screen may still be painting the ceiling, but it doesn't look the same. That digital tether, that phantom buzz in your pocket, no longer holds the same absolute power. You have walked a path from the ancient world, from the marble halls of Rome and the quiet shade of the Bodhi tree, and you have returned to this very moment. You've brought back more than just history's time equals 600 milliseconds. You've returned with a set of practical, powerful tools. The anxiety may still arise. That is the nature of being human. But you no longer feel defenseless against it. The voices of the masters are no longer distant echoes. They are clear, practical instructions for the craft of living. The path forward is not a single grand revelation, but the quiet, profound, moment-by-moment practice of choosing the right tool for the job, or